The next project is a commercial, and there are two parts to it. There's kind of two complementary commercial shots that are similar, and we're going to approach them. I think there's some nuances that can be learned from looking at both of them. And this one is a bit different in terms of the creative brief because it's very specific. And the reason it's different is because I'm working with a music production company and not directly with the director or the client. So how that works is there's an agency. Agency contracts the music production company. The music production company then hires several composers to write tracks that they submit to the agency. We don't know which track they might pick, so it could be mine that's selected or it could not be. We have a very short time frame. Usually it's about 24 hours to finish everything up. And so in this situation, there's some pretty clear direction that I'll walk through in a minute for what needs to happen on this particular cut. So let's play the cut for the first commercial, which we'll call Deer, and give you a chance to see how it looks without music.
If I could give you only one reason to drive the new Astra, it would be its intelligent headlights. With 8 different settings, the bi-xenon headlamps adapt to any speed, weather, or traffic situation, which makes it much safer to go running through the woods at night. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
Now let's look at the cut with the reference track. Now, the feedback that we got from the creative director was that they don't like the lack of energy in this particular piece. So that's more what they're looking to do, is to kind of redo that and get something more energetic. But let's take a look at it and then see what we think afterwards.
If I could give you only one reason to drive the new Astra, it would be its intelligent headlights. With 8 different settings, the bi-xenon headlamps adapt to any speed, weather, or traffic situation, which makes it much safer to go running through the woods at night. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I guess I see what they're talking about. There's a lot of light sounds in here, not a lot of...
If I could give you only one reason to drive the new Astra, it would be its intelligent headlights.
Not a lot of depth for a large period of this. So if they're looking for something stronger, then I might need to change the instrumentation, not utilize this very closely. So it's kind of a funny example. They're providing a reference track, but they're saying we don't like it. So, and yet they somewhat like it because they had chosen it before. They just needed to be a little different. So the challenge is trying to figure out which parts to keep and kind of work with, and then what parts to change. And I think when I'm looking at this, there's a couple things to come to mind, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, let's take this Deer commercial and run it through this decision matrix and see what kind of information comes up. So initially, hit points with a commercial are going to be very clear. It's very short. What is it, like about 30 seconds in length? So there's going to be a clear stop point and a clear ending point. And also there's this moment when we fast forward here, there's a reveal of this deer. And then there's a pause, and then it comes back in. So those are going to be a couple key points that need to be hit. In terms of a tempo, commercials need to be a pretty quick pace. So we want to have something that's pretty upbeat. I don't think the tempo that they were using in the reference track was that far off. Maybe that's a good example of something that we take forward into the composing process and simply respond to their feeling that it didn't have enough energy by doing more with the orchestration or the instrumentation on it, and kind of keep a similar tempo. In terms of responsiveness, there's definitely a lot of dark images here. It's at night. There's kind of some quick edits that are happening, so probably something that feels very much in line with the moving picture. And a commercial tends to have closer scoring than a film or a documentary, meaning that we're going to look it's only 30 seconds long, so every second counts. And so the changes that are happening are going to be very specific, and the music needs to be changing in those moments. So there's some anticipation for when this reveal happens, and that pause also creates some anticipation reaction for when the car comes back. But they happen so quickly that there's not a lot of time for things to build. So I feel like it's a little bit more in the reactive stage than it is in the anticipation stage. It's like, oh, there's a deer. Music cuts out. The car comes back. Music comes back in. Let's play that again to give you a sense for how that looks.
Weather or traffic situation, which makes it much safer to go running through the woods at night. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
So again, clear hit points there and a lot of responsiveness to what's happening. Now the mood is definitely pretty dark. And I think their example was dark. I think I'd want to go that direction too, to match what's happening in the woods. And thicker instrumentation. If they don't feel like it has enough energy, adding more instruments can oftentimes be a great way of adding more energy to a piece. And finally, the relationship to the whole, well, it needs to relate to the other commercial cut that's similar to this. We'll look at it in a few minutes. But for the most part, it's a standalone piece. So it doesn't need to relate to whatever came before it or after it. It really needs to just hold its own.